Alright, Terran versus Protoss. The focus early on is going to be determining if they're going to go for any sort of early one base, anything super aggressive early on. This map is a little bit more defensive, but the biggest danger early against Protoss is Stargate or Warp Prism or something like that that can get into your base and overrun you before you're ready for it. So that's what I'm going to be focused on. I'm going to be going for a Reaper Expand, which is the build I'm probably going to use in every matchup. We'll start with the early wall. The walling is, of course, very important in Protoss against Adepts, because getting a couple Adepts into your base, just flying in Shade style, is one of the most annoying things in Legacy of the Void, bar none. 2 Adepts can actually kill, like, infinite workers if you only have a couple Marines, so. But I'm going to be scouting off the barracks and then re-scouting with the Reaper. On this map, you can take your expansion pretty safely. At least against ground units, because one ramp does protect 2 bases, and you can utilize this in, well, as any race, and in most matchups. A lot of players, actually, even Protoss players, will play kind of greedy because of that, where they can just defend one location against potential ground attacks. This also does up the chances of there being some sort of air-based attack, like a Warp Prism or an Oracle, so I gotta keep that in mind. But of course, that comes at the cost of not really being vulnerable against ground attacks as long as I'm prepared for them. Alright, I've got my gas. I build it right after the barracks, so that way I have enough gas to get the Reaper afterwards. And right now, just building SCVs up until the barracks finishes. I'm going to build one more, and then we're going to get the orbital immediately after the barracks, as always. I'm going to rally out this SCV to the other side and get an idea of what he's up to. Alright, orbital is on the way, and I'm just going to prioritize getting a wall off here with another depot, making sure it's a tight wall. Also, I need it for supply as well. Past that, I'm going to go down and take my expansion, and just focusing on getting an expansion up early, especially in Legacy of the Void, where you mine out a little bit quicker than in Heart of the Swarm because you have less minerals. You have approximately, I believe it's 30% faster relatively. I don't know the exact math, but it is quicker. You start mining out of one base if you're fully saturated around 8 minutes, which is pretty quick. We've got a Reaper on the way. We see a lot of cannons. Now, this is not your typical strategy, because cannons this early, they do not defend against the Reaper. I'm not going to exploit that to a serious extent, but if you see this, just know you can throw the Reaper into the base, and he will not have anything to deal with it besides maybe a Zealot. Now, you shouldn't be spending your time trying to micro. Right now, I could probably, with my fancy skills in micro, kill 10 probes. But I'm just going to try to kill a couple probes, and once the Zealot comes out, then I'm not going to worry about this. But right now, we just go to work on the probes. But most importantly, I am building up my infrastructure behind. I'm just going to run away. I killed a few probes. We see he hasn't expanded, so that means I have a severe advantage. I'm just going to build up. I like to go 4 racks early on. It's maybe a little bit greedy. If he hadn't gone for the cannons, I would have made an engineering bay instead of a 4th barracks. Because if he's on one base, or even if he's expanding, there's a chance he goes for something like an Oracle. And you don't want to be caught vulnerable to that. Alright, I'm just building. Well, remember, just getting the add-ons almost immediately as the barracks finish. I'm going to go with the 2 tech lab, 2 reactor split. A lot of players make the mistake of making too many tech labs and going for too many marauders. It's good to just have a solid marine count. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough bulk in your army. The marauders are good, but just having a solid marine count can be better, especially when you're trying to overwhelm adepts or you have a decent chunk of medevacs or something like that. So, 2 reactors, 2 tech labs. I'm also going to start my factory here as soon as possible. I've got my second gas pretty quick as well. I already have the expansion up. And I'm going to have a decent chunk of minerals with these 2 mules dropping. There's no reason to do anything but drop mules with the energy and the orbital commands as well. So, because I can get this Reaper into scout, and I will in just a moment, I'm just adding all my production on. And it's not that important to be consistently producing Marines and Marauders as it is to be building SCVs right now. I want to fully saturate this base. I'm going to go ahead and get an engineering bay, which is going to be used to get +1 and potentially turrets, as I scout in here and see if he has a Stargate or something like that. We're going to look, get an idea of what he's doing, and how to counter it. Alright, he's got a ton of cannons, which means all I need to do, this is kind of like if you watch the TVZ guide, where he just goes for a defensive strategy with potentially a lot of tech early on, but he has no real aggressive potential. There is nothing he can do to really attack me right now. If all of his The question is not how do I kill that many cannons, it's how do I take advantage of that many cannons. If he's invested 1,000 minerals in cannons or something near it, then if I invest 1,000 minerals in my economy, I'm going to get a larger return later on. I don't need to worry about killing those cannons, because when I have 100 supply of units, those cannons are just going to melt. I don't need to worry about it right now. I just need to determine if there's... I'm actually just going to get turrets. I don't know exactly what he's doing, if he's expanding or not, but I know he's spent so much on cannons that all I have to do is play very middle of the road once again. Just spend my money, make sure I don't get supply blocked, and build up a solid bio force. Now, in some situations, you want to build up more factory units. Like maybe if he's coming in with an Oracle early on, you get a Cyclone out of the factory, or something along those lines. But in this scenario where he's giving me plenty of space, honestly, I should have a Marine on the other side. We're just shift clicking it off. We should have a Marine or two out on the map. But when he's giving me this much space, I gotta take advantage of it. Like, I can take... Well, I'm gonna go ahead and scan. We see he has an expansion, but we don't see any tech or anything like that. I could easily just take a third base and get an additional barracks and just spend my money. That's what it's all about right now. I'm just spending my money. The most important part is I'm not queuing up units. I don't want to have, like... Imagine if I had 4 Marauders queued up here and nothing else producing. You got to be careful, just looking at your production, making sure there's not a bunch extra. Now, it is better to queue up units than to not have units producing at all. But obviously, you want to try to find some sort of decent middle ground there, rather than just relying on queuing up units. Because, of course, 2 or 3 Marauders queued up could be extra barracks you could be using to produce those Marauders right now. Alright, so I'm just building up this army. Once again, remember... If he has cannons, there is no reason to attack into him. He is invested in defense, not in offense. I do not have any obligation to attack him. Even if you're not that comfortable playing later on against Protoss, remember right now I'm going to have 3 bases. The ways to get ahead are expansions, production, and upgrades. I'm getting expansions, I'm adding production here in the form of extra barracks, and I'm getting upgrades, which is something he cannot build as much production, get as many upgrades or as many expansions if he's investing in that much defense. So I'm just focusing on the mid to late game. We're talking 150 supply of units before I actually attack in. Right when he maybe tries to expand or I see some dramatic tech, like we see he has a robotics facility here, but he doesn't have a third base. We know that. I've already got Marines in position to see it at the moment, so I'm just focusing on building up these units. There is, once again, no reason to attack. Though I'm getting to the point where I have enough units to just run over the cannons, because once you have a lot of Marauders and a few medevacs to back them up, you can just run over cannons. They don't have that much HP. Maybe a single medevac would have trouble, but 6 medevacs and 60 supply will not. Alright. Once again, we're just focusing on the production. Once you get over 100 supply, usually you need at least 2 depots in production at one time, sometimes more. Just because you're able to produce units so quickly off of so much income that you're going to exhaust your supply very quick. We see he has Void Rays. Once again, nothing that causes concern. Because straight up Marines and medevacs with decent upgrades. Speaking of decent upgrades, I need to get my armory, getting a second engineering bay. By the time you're getting a third base, you should probably be looking to add on some extra production and an armory if you're going for bio to get those two upgrades. That's something a lot of players won't do, is go for 2-2 because you need that extra tech building. As each race, really. A lot of players won't go for 2-2 because they don't get that extra tech building for a while. So if you're ahead on the 2-2 upgrade, your units will just be so much more cost effective. But we're looking at that 150 supply mark, which is right around when I can start ignoring cannons almost completely. So that is what I'm going to be doing pretty soon. We see plenty of medevacs. I'm actually going to do something a little bit fancy. I'm going to get his units out of position. Oh, a warp prism's coming in. I can stim back all my units to defend. That's not a big deal. I actually had a medevac. I'm clicking D to drop. Make sure we take down the warp prism is the first target, and then we can clean the rest of this up. It's a little bit inefficient to stim everything here, but just dealing with the warp prism is fine. Now I'm getting those 2-2 upgrades, once again, focusing on production. And before I do anything too crazy, I'm going to make sure I'm producing out all my barracks. I spend my money before I move out, because you want to have another army. You don't want to attack, lose your army, and then be like, oh crap, I need to make another army. That's not an ideal timing to be worrying about that. You want to worry about it before you need it. So I'm going to do a drop of 3 medevacs, and we're just going to put them together. I like to hotkey them on 2, and we can put them in the corner. I'm going to drop them out over here. The idea is to utilize the strength of the medevacs and hit them in 2 different locations at the same time. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. But just making it so I negate his defender's advantage here. I'm going to scan. We're going to see he has everything concentrated towards the front. I will probably be running up the ramp. I could drop all the units, but there's no reason to get fancy here. I've just been spending my money, consistently producing units. And I'm going to do this drop at the same time. Timing is important. Timing is important. I should have sent out 1 Marine ahead here just in case he had a solid army. But now we're about to do the attack once again. I'm focusing on making sure I have all my production, producing. I'm almost maxed out, so it's not that big of an issue, but we're going to bring this attack in. We're going to drop it out right over here. I'm going to scan one more time to see his army, and as we drop it out, he should move his army back in order to defend this. When I see his army move back, we'll just keep scanning. Why not? I'll stim these units. I can go for this base. If he's not moving his army units, we'll just let him lose his base here. It's not too big a deal. But honestly, at this point, not to sugarcoat it, but I have way too much for him to deal with. I can stim up the ramp. I'm going to go all the way up so all my units can fire, and then A-click, and we can just run it over. Nothing crazy. He has a few in the way of Void Rays, but with medevac support, my units don't need to worry too much about it. I don't know how this Whittle Mine got there, but replacing units back at home with production as I work through can just keep stimming these units. Like, at this point, I've run him over. I haven't done anything crazy. Nothing crazy there at all. Like, I just made my production. I built units. I wasn't, like, spamming APM. I don't need a huge amount of APM in order to execute that build or do a double drop or something like that. I just built units and constantly scouted to see, is he expanding? Is he going for any sort of tech? I need to switch up. Like, if he's going for heavy disruptor or something, I might need to go for liberators. Or if he's going for a lot of air units, maybe I go for cyclones or something like that. It kind of depends on the situation. But he opted to just go for a lot of defense and expand late. And then he eventually harassed me with a War Prism, but nothing crazy. Let's look at the score screen just to get an idea. Alright, as you can see there, obviously he wasn't rocking out at a huge amount of APM, but I only had 76 APM there, and even with that, I was supply blocked a little bit much, which is something I shouldn't be doing. You want to try to keep this, you want to be supply blocked less than 10% of the game. This game was 11 minutes, I want to be supply blocked less than 1 minute and 10 seconds. That's actually a pretty big mistake by me, and that's something a lot of players will make the mistake of. He actually wasn't supply blocked very long, good for him, but 76 APM, nothing crazy at all. And you can see my army supply just going consistently up because I'm spending my money. I'm consistently adding more money and just consistently making SCVs. Nothing crazy, 75 APM worth of it, and I'm still able to just make such a huge army compared to him. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the TVP guide. Make sure to do all the YouTube stuff and comment with feedback or anything like that, and check out the stream. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Alright guys, that was the TVP.